Well, first of all, in my address to the legislature, in my inaugural address, I suggested that we got some problems and that we're going to have to address them down the line. So in June of my first year, I called for a special session of the legislature. And I said, we've got a school funding problem. And the way I propose to deal with it is to have a state income tax. And as everybody knows, that was a tough 2 years. And by the way, during the campaign, I had not said we don't need an income tax for the foreseeable future. I said we don't need an income tax to balance the budget, and we didn't. And I sort of hedged on how we're going to do the school funding. But I was quoted as saying we don't need an income tax for the foreseeable future, and I had to live with that.
Were you misquoted?
No, I wasn't misquoted. I was quoted out of context. And by the way, I've looked at some of the television things I did during the campaign, and time and again I would say that I would go for an income tax only if it met certain criteria. And I said that during the primary, and I said that during the election. It didn't come up too often, but the people had that impression. And when I ran for re-election, I was advised not to try to defend my other remarks, but to just say, hey, I said it and I was wrong.
Looking back now, do you think you confronted the tax issue too soon in the first term?
Well, there were people who said I should have made it a campaign issue, that I was going to do an income tax. But honestly, I had seen a paper that John Russo had done on a statewide property tax, and I wanted to give that further consideration before I settled for an income tax, and maybe a combination of statewide property tax and income. Anyway, but I had to confront the issue, and even thought of doing it in my inaugural. No,
Why?
I don't.
Why did you have to confront it? Why couldn't you?
Well, we had
have
school
done it for another
funding.
year?
We had the school funding issue. We had a shortage. We had a problem. We had a court mandate. We had a lot of things that forced us to face the issue.
What was the court mandate?
That we fund schools on an equitable basis, that we do not rely on the property tax in municipalities that didn't have an adequate property tax base.
When was that decision rendered?
Oh, that was basically Robinson versus Cahill in different shades.
1973. Was it rendered in the election year, 73?
It was rendered. Actually, Ted Botter decided that a couple of years before, I think. So it was an issue. It was never clearly identified by candidates. Just like in this last election, you didn't hear either candidate talk about deficits. If you don't have to, you don't have to. And in the campaign, by the way, you don't really get to articulate in depth any issue. Ledger did a good job in campaigns in the old days where they took the candidates into the editorial board and went into in-depth questioning of a specific topic and how you're going to deal with it.
Do you recall who on your staff and your cabinet, among your advisors, argued for or against proposing the income tax that first year?
Well, I don't think anybody in the cabinet really opposed the income tax. I got it from the legislators. I mean, the legislators were coming in all the time with alternate proposals, which resembled to a large extent what Ray Bateman proposed in 1977. A little of this, a little of that, hope for this. But once we decided that the income tax was the way to go, and there was no realistic alternative, we stayed with it.
Was there anybody in your close circle of advisors who you recall saying, I don't think we should do this now?
No, I don't think so.
In hindsight, do you think if you had waited longer, you might have been able to build more support for it before you unveiled it?
In the legislature?
Yeah.
No. No, I mean, it was, first of all, they had to be convinced that I wasn't going to go for anything else. And there's no way to convince them in advance. Just like Corzine couldn't convince them in advance last year that he needed that penny. No, I don't think so. Probably a better, Dick Hughes might have done a little better. And
how so? What would he have done?
He schmoozed people. Dick Hughes was the best politician New Jersey's ever turned out. But even Dick Hughes, when he tried to get an income tax in the old days, he couldn't do it. And so, you had to do it. You had to come down, draw the line, and say that I'm not crossing this line.
How were you at schmoozing at the beginning?
Lousy. But I had a good staff. And I had, people like Dick Leone, who, although he irritated some people, was good at explaining why we needed something. Jerry English had a good rapport with a lot of legislators. And various other, Ann Klein, who was in the cabinet and had been an advocate of an income tax in the 73 primary. And there were even some Republicans who acknowledged that probably we needed this. The people that drove you crazy were the people, especially Democrats, who would come in and say, it's a great idea, we need an income tax, but this is not good enough. We need a better plan on this income tax. And they would keep coming in and say, yeah, we're for it, but not this one because it's not quite good enough.
You thought that was fraudulent, that position?
Sort of. I mean, I remember one legislator who came in one day with a list of 4 reasons why he couldn't vote for the income tax. Democratic legislator. And Steve Persky, who was spearheading the income tax, looks at his list and he says, we've taken all these 4 things out of the bill. And I still can't vote for it. It was life or death for a lot of people, at least they thought so.